to provide relief to their compatriots in need. And we are grateful to our friends, including members of the Group of 77 in China, for their generous support that they have provided Pakistan in our relief efforts. We are confident that their support will be sustained as Pakistan moves to the daunting task of rehabilitation and reconstruction. And we are incredibly grateful for the Secretary General of the United Nations for arriving in Pakistan at a time of distress, witnessing firsthand the apocalyptic devastations caused by these monster monsoons, and becoming Pakistan's champion, becoming the developing world's champion for the impacts of climate change and for his leadership on this issue. Excellencies, beyond the emergency actions I have outlined, we need to promote global structures and policies which can end inequality and inequity among and within nations and enable all developing countries to achieve the SDGs and the goals of the Paris Agreement. The systemic and structural reforms should be encompassed by the following. First, it is essential to reform international finance. The United Nations Secretary General has rightly called the present international financial architecture morally bankrupt. It must be aligned with the SDGs. This implies sustainable management of sovereign debt, larger concessional financing from MDBs, including through recapitalization and lowering provisioning ratios. Issuance of additional SDRs, reducing borrowing costs for developing countries, and innovative financing. Second, if we are to ensure a timely transition to a sustainable and dynamic global economy, we need to mobilize $1 trillion annually as investment in sustainable infrastructure, energy, transport, housing, industry, agriculture. Besides access to public and private finance, the developing countries must prepare a pipeline of bankable projects, especially by de-risking investments through blended financing guarantees and SDG/green bonds. We should also consider setting up a UN policy board and utilize the UN country offices to promote sustainable infrastructure investment. Third, we must fully and faithfully implement the climate change agenda in accordance with the principles of common but differentiated responsibility. By COP27, we must secure fulfillment of the pledge by the industrialized countries to provide $100 billion plus annually in climate finance, allocate half of this to climate adaptation, and establish a financing facility to compensate developing countries for loss and damage from climate impacts. Meanwhile, the developed countries must assume the burden of mitigation to reach net zero emissions well before 2050. Fourth, the international trade system should be restructured to contribute to the achievement of SDGs through export-led growth in developing countries. To this end, preferential trade access for developing countries should be enlarged. They should be offered policy space for industrialization, e.g. through waivers from the TRIPS and TRIMS agreements, and unilateral trade protection and restrictions incompatible with the WTO agreements should be speedily eliminated. Fifth, the induction of a fair international tax regime, including digital trade, is essential to enable developing countries to mobilize larger domestic resources for development. Sixth, we should negotiate an international technology agreement aligned with SDGs. It should offer preferential access for developing countries to relevant advanced technologies and end discriminatory restrictions. It should also focus on global research and development, on scientific breakthroughs relevant to the 17 SDGs. 7, we should seek an equitable international information technology regime which bridges the divide and enables developing countries to leapfrog into global digital economy of the future. Excellencies, I hope that these proposals for emergency actions and reform will be reflected in the declaration we will adopt at this meeting and will be promoted by our group during the current session of the UN General Assembly. Apart from the cooperation which we desire and expect from the developing countries, the members of the Group of 77 plus China are also well placed to promote their development objectives through mutual South-South cooperation. Several mechanisms for South-South cooperation have been created within the UN system already. We welcome the President of China's Global Development Initiative. A critical component for rapid development is connectivity projects that can enhance trade, investments, and economic efficiency. China's Belt and Road Initiative is an outstanding example. Pakistan also looks forward to the completion of the Tapi gas pipeline, CASA 1000 electricity grid, the Pakistan-Afghanistan-Uzbekistan railroad, as well as the extension of the China-Pakistan economic corridor through Afghanistan. Once Pakistan-India relations are normalized, we can then look forward to the integration of emerging economies of South Asia, Central Asia, and West Asia. Excellencies, in order to advance our common objectives, Pakistan will convene a ministerial meeting of the Group of 77 in China next December. The conference's action-orientated discussions will assist the group to secure tangible outcomes, especially at the SDC summit to convene at the UN in September 2023 and at the proposed Summit of the Future in 2024. Excellencies, our countries and peoples confront monumental challenges. We need to change the policies and structures that perpetuate inequality and poverty. We need a positive response from the North to the legitimate objectives and aspirations of the developing world. We will not secure either without mutual support, solidarity, and unity. Let this mutual support, solidarity, and unity become our guiding principles as we endeavor to build a better and prosperous tomorrow for our peoples. I thank you. Honorable members, excellencies, distinguished delegates, we are pleased that the distinguished President of the General Assembly and the Secretary General of the United Nations are joining us this morning. I am now pleased to invite His Excellency, the President of the 77th Session of the General Assembly, to address the ministerial meeting.
पाकिस्तान की सरबराही में G77 ममालिक का इजलास और इस इजलास से खिताब करते हुए कहा जाता है तरक्की पजीर ममालिक को तवानाई के शोबे में मुआवनत की अशद ज़रूरत है। पाकिस्तान में सैलाब की सूरत हाल की वजह से बड़े पैमाने पर तबाही हुई है। पाकिस्तान का एक तिहाई हिस्सा पानी में डूबा हुआ है। 3 करोड़ 30 लाख से ज़्यादा अफराद इससे मुतासर हुए हैं। ये थी PTV ताज़ा।
सेंट्रल एशिया और ईस्टर्न यूरोप में लॉ बन चुके हैं कि आप किसी भी मुल्क, ये दोस्त ममालिक में बात नहीं कर रहा हूँ, किसी भी मुल्क, दोस्त ममालिक या दुश्मन ममालिक का जिम्मेदार यह फैसला करना फॉरेन ऑफिस का काम है, मेरा और आपका नहीं है। किसी भी मुल्क का अगर आप झंडा जलाते हैं या उसकी तस्दीर करते हैं तो 7 साल सजा। हमारे यहाँ जो कुछ हमने फ्रांस के एम्बेसडर के बारे में सड़कों के ऊपर किया, वो क्या राय गई होगी। और फिर भी एक अगर फ्रेंच आके आपको चेक देता है तो मैं आपके प्रोग्राम की तरफ से सलूट करता हूँ, सिंपल, क्योंकि दैट इवन टुडे क्रेडिट गोज टू टुडे। एक हमने एक फ्लैश किया पूरी दुनिया में और उसमें सबसे ज़्यादा यानी कि जो आप कह सकते कि एप्रिसिएशन हमें देनी चाहिए वो अपने प्राइम मिनिस्टर को और UN के जो सेक्रेटरी जनरल को। इमीडिएटली रिस्पॉन्स हुआ, फ्लैश हुआ, पूरी दुनिया में गया और फॉरेन मीडिया को भी मैं मुबारकबाद देता हूँ कि उन्होंने हमारी बहुत मदद की है, इसमें कोई शक नहीं है। हमें खुले दिल से ये बात करनी चाहिए। जहाँ तक बात अभी शरीना साहिबा ने की और उससे पहले बहुत डिटेल बात सुलोगी साहब ने की, तो ये हमें याद रखना पड़ेगा कि जो डिप्लोमेसी है उसके बारे में मैं रिक्वेस्ट करूँगा अपने के आप देखने वालों को, स्टूडेंट्स को, कि ذوالفقار بھٹو کی کتاب ہے متھ آف انڈیپینڈنس، وہ ضرور پڑھیں اور ذہن میں رکھیے کہ نان الائن موومنٹ اس کتاب سے نکلی تھی. انڈیپینڈنٹ جو آپ کی ڈپلومیسی ہے وہ مذاق نہیں ہے. آپ کی ایک فارمر منسٹر تھی، انہوں نے ٹویٹ کر دیا اس کے بارے میں، فرانس کے بارے میں، اور بعد میں ان کو ٹویٹ کو ڈیلیٹ کرنا پڑا، معافی مانگنی پڑی، لیکن تب تک ڈیمیج واز آلریڈی ڈن. ایک دن آپ کے ایک اور فارمر منسٹر اٹھتے ہیں، فارمر منسٹر اٹھتے ہیں فیڈرل، اور وہ جو ہے وہ